So Monaco joins the Switch and it may have just found its perfect home. At least I'm hoping I can tell you that at the end of this review. Winning countless awards upon its original release back in 2010, including the grand prize at the Independent Games Festival, and also being touted by reputable magazines such as PC Gamer as one of the best co-op games of all time, the question today is, does it still hold that same quality nearly 10 years later, or would it have been better to leave these thieves forgotten? Let's jump in today and find out.
I can't go, I won't leave. Coming from the block with plain clothes and police. Straight up to the top with bankrolls and rollies. Ride with me if you ride with me. You can slide with me if you feel like.
So when it comes to story Monaco, it's surprisingly interesting. I saw a lot of commentary on the gameplay, on the co-op mechanics, but very few touched on the story itself. Now, starting off as part of a crew escaping from jail, you're working to escape eventually the city and country. To do this and achieve this, you and your team must complete increasingly more complex heists. Characters each bring their own personality to the table with text dialogue and some minor audio cues, but it just matches the genre perfectly, and it brings an entertaining story of friends and some not so friendly teammates working together for a larger mission. So when it comes to gameplay, that's what we are all here for, and this is surprisingly simple at first glance, but it becomes more and more complex. You get to choose from varying members of the crew. They unlock as you progress through the initial missions. These include the lookout, who can detect enemies while sneaking, a pickpocket with a pet monkey, yes, you heard that right, the cleaner, who can knock out enemies, the mole, who can dig through walls and obstacles, the gentleman can disguise himself, the locksmith can unlock pretty much anything, the hacker, who can get into any computer, and finally the redhead, who can seduce her enemies. Now, all the controls themselves are relatively simplistic. It's pretty much one button for each action, so pick up items, attack, interact with obstacles. The real complexities begin to present themselves as the difficulty ramps. This is more brain power complexities than actual gameplay difficulties. Gone are those initial, introductory tutorial feeling levels, and you're left with deducing which thief works best for specific levels, and how you maybe approach it all again so you can do it within the restricting timer. Single player and co-op, from this I will say they provide two wholly unique experiences. Dying in single player means you return to the menu, you're going to choose a new character, and then you're going to continue from that same spot but with a whole new skill set. It's an incredibly simple mechanic that brings a very different experience, as I said, to single player over multiplayer. With co-op, you're going to be instead combining skill sets in real time amongst 4 friends or 3 online counterparts. So for a game that's essentially based on stealth gameplay at its core, one wrong move can very quickly make this one fall into pieces, or just generally absolute chaos. As you progress, you're going to see enemy count increasing, weapons begin to come into play, and before you know it, you're going to be stumbling through a level, bleeding out as you try to make your escape. Gameplay wise, it does translate perfectly to the Switch, and docked or undocked, you won't be disappointed as you bring your crew together. Finally here, not only do we get the initial campaign from the original release, but a whole new campaign closing out the story. On top of this, they've included a zombie mode. For the $14.99 price tag, there's a whole lot of game here to enjoy. Single player and co-op provide great experiences, you won't be disappointed in either. But when it comes to co-op, expect a whole lot more chaos when you have 4 players running around triggering enemies, alarms, and just causing general disaster. Now when it comes to graphics, this one brings a unique twist to its world. Pixelated characters somewhat remind me of a GTA gone Atari, and I'm curious to its influence on games like The Escapist and Hotline Miami, as I mentioned already. With the pixelated characters, the environments actually take on a very different theme. The core map itself is a black and grey, almost hand-drawn map that resembles a blueprint, and I'm sure that's the aim they were going for. Obscure reference time here, but it actually almost reminds me of Dogville by Lars von Trier if we had this in 3D. Now let's talk lighting, and what a fantastic job they've done. With flashlight in hand, you're going to see this world light up, and this 2D drawing then quickly turns into rooms full of 3D objects, so obstacles, enemies, anything you can pick up or interact with. This game is based upon line of sight, meaning if your character can't see it, You can't see it, and you must rely on the map for direction with no idea of what awaits you in each room, and this, for me, was just the perfect way to represent this. Finally, when it comes to the graphics and the story, they've driven this story forward with text dialogue boxes, and it fits the world perfectly. When it comes to complaints on the graphics, there's very few, but I will say the only issue I have is I didn't always recognise where I was going. The lighting at times, it could be a little bit sporadic or let's say janky, and getting used to all the different interactive objects from their hand-drawn through to the 3D versions, it did take me some time to kind of start remembering what they were, but once I did get there, I had an absolute blast. Overall, Pocket Watch games have taken what initially appears to be a black and white world and have gone to a great extent to provide a ton of colour to this world, while also just reinforcing those gameplay mechanics of line of sight. This could have been easily a very bland environment, but it turns into an absolute visual treat. Finally, when it comes to sound, there's not too much to talk about here. The music, it's kind of hit and miss, honestly. Some tracks I did really enjoy, but some of them really were frustrating and they're kind of on loop a lot of the time. So it might be one you need to turn down the music just a tad, I'll say. But when it comes to sound effects, they've really built upon the world. Pretty much everything here, it has just the right cue to add a whole new level to the game. You've got alarms, sirens, gunshots, electricity, computers, explosions. In summary, if you can see it and interact with it, it typically comes with some sort of audio cue, and that really reinforces what you're doing, and I really like that part of Monaco. So Monaco, a game nearly 10 years old, is nearly as fresh today as it ever was, and I've never really played anything that quite felt like this. It's a hugely entertaining story, and it's accompanied by some incredibly difficult gameplay elements, tension that is honestly rare in a video game, and there's a co-op experience in here unlike anything else you will find on the Switch. Picking this one up for 15 minutes can quickly turn into hours, and I can tell you I found that out the hard way. Andy Schatz, I hope I didn't butcher the surname there, but he is the game's primary and, well, as far as I know, only programmer, is incredibly passionate about this game, and I've got to say it's understandable why. For a game that still feels this fresh, nearly 10 years later after its original release, it's incredibly unique and a joy to play. For a game that struggled previously on console release, I hope this version can turn that around. Ideally for me, this one it sees a limited print release because it deserves a place on any gamer's shelf as a testament to how a great game can not only stand the test of time, but provide a unique experience outside of the confines of a AAA budget. I love indie games, but few get me as much as this one did. Today I'm awarding Monaco a 9 out of 10, and this one, like its original 2010 release, it's an absolute must buy. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this review, hit that subscribe and notification button. It truly is appreciated. Leave me a comment with your thoughts, and I'll see you all on the next Gaming X.